Okay, we are live. So for those listening at home, welcome to the Live from Sword Coast podcast. My name is Kevin Madison, and I will be your friendly dungeon user this evening. If you'll bear with me a moment, I'm going to double check, make sure we're actually broadcasting, because I have had some issues this week with the channel. And let's see. Okay, it appears that we are working. Okay, here. All right, sorry. So today, so this is the day 7 of the RPGaDay event for 2018. This is an exercise where we are answering different questions relating to role-playing games for every day in the month of August for 2018. You may notice I've got some different headwear today. That's because it was 30 degrees Celsius today when I took the dog for a walk, and my hair is a sweaty mess, and this is a better alternative than what the what my my unchapeaued head would look like. So today's question is, let's see here, how can a GM make the stakes important? And I think that's an interesting question. Again, I'm going to keep this to a tight 10 minutes, and I'm hoping that we don't have any more of the technical issues that we've had the last couple of days. I have rebooted my router, and I've cleared all the memory and all the caches on all my computers, so I'm hoping that that problem will not be here any longer. But anyway, in terms of the DMs or GMs stakes, so the stakes, I think that in keeping with sort of the player investment that I've mentioned, one of the ways, I guess there's a couple of ways, is that maintaining a persistent world that responds to the character's actions or inactions. That's the way that you maintain the stakes, is because stakes, assuming it means like the things you're playing for, right? Like the things that give heights to your victories and depths to your losses. These are the things that only come from when the players are invested in the world. I've been thinking a lot lately about how certain games don't engage players, or they don't have mechanics that engages the characters with the world, where the world is responding to them. In particular, looking at older school games versus more modern games. Old school games, you had fantasy role-playing games. I mean, you had the world change as you were going along. You saw that the world was responding to you. You were getting henchmen. You could build a stronghold. You build domain and that kind of stuff. But that isn't present in a lot of modern games. Like in Pathfinder, in 3rd edition D&D, in Starfinder. Your character, the difference in terms of how the world reacts to your character, as far as your character, like the mechanics that are on your character sheet, it's the same from 1st to 20th. And unless you are finding a way to, if you have those mechanics in there where the characters build domains and they build whatever else, cities, or they build wizards towers or whatnot, that's one way of making the stakes higher, is because they've got stuff that they can lose, right? Like there's meaningful things that characters have interacted with in the world. For games that don't have that baked in stuff in the rules, you really have to kind of introduce that on your own. And I think that the way that you do that is by listening to what the players are responding to, whether that's if you're running a campaign that is a scripted campaign that has a set plot that's going to go, from X to Y points, like an adventure path or something like that, or even just like your own scripted adventure. Or looking in the background, I can see some Savage Worlds there too, like the Savage Tales or whatever they call them, the plot point campaigns. What you need to do is, I guess, it can be one of two things. Maybe like you can listen to what the players are responding to. If one of the rules of thumb that I have with my groups, for instance, is that I don't have really a distinction between characters that are improvised on the night of versus the pre-made characters that I had scripted into a campaign, as to whether or not they have consequence in the broader story. If I throw someone in and the PCs really, or the players really respond to that character, then the players know that, okay, I will make that character more. I'll make that character into the campaign. You know, there's I think a feeling sometimes that if someone has just like randomly generated a character or a name or something like that in a campaign or in a session, that you know that that character really doesn't matter because they weren't present in the DM's mind before. But what we've really established for the last, I mean, I guess decade or so, is that everybody is fair game for being important in the campaign. So if we happen to add in a butler or something like that the characters respond to. I had for instance, a character in one campaign that was basically he was the foil for this like blackmail scheme, and the characters really took pity on this guy, and they ended up hiring him, and he became a persisting character who stayed around, and he actually became, for guest stars in the campaign, he was the guy that people played. That's one way to get the characters invested, and then they have something they care about that you can threaten or you can put in jeopardy at least. And the other thing is you can give characters stuff. If you give characters, say, a ship, in a sci-fi game or in a what do you call it, a fantasy game that's set in a naval kind of a naval setting or naval city. Or if you give them, like, say, an inn or a tavern or something like that, something where that they are going to be invested because they didn't think they'd have it before, and now they've got it. That's something that, again, gives you an opportunity to raise stakes. Stakes only matter when the characters care about the potential consequences of losing whatever it is they've got. And you don't really, excuse me, I got a little phlegm there. Because assuming you don't want to just take away stuff from players, like their magic items or their fancy ray gun or their whatever, or ruin their connections with certain organizations that are needed in, like, say, a game like Traveler where there's trade and whatever, or a contact in, like, say, Shadowrun. One of the ways you can do that without taking away their stuff necessarily is by finding out what they care about in the fiction and threaten that stuff. It's the old in hero system or champions, the old joke is the dependent NPC, which is a fairly regular disadvantage that people would take, where it's the Lois Lane, it's the Jimmy Olsen, it's the Mary Jane who constantly gets kidnapped or whatever, or robbing the boy hostage. So anyway, I think that's my thoughts on the stakes, on how a GM can raise the stakes. It's by making sure you identify what the players care about in the campaign beyond just their stuff. That's just mean. I mean, taking away. That's not to say that you shouldn't do that if the story allows for it, or if the players get themselves into a situation where that's the only answer. But I mean, like, setting a campaign or setting a story off constantly as being like taking away their loot, that to me seems like that's not an effective way of motivating them. You need to make sure it's something in the in the game or in the fiction that they do care about, that then you can put in jeopardy. So anyway, that's my my thoughts on the on my day 7, which is how a GM can make the stakes important. Tomorrow I'm going to be dealing with how can we get more people playing. That's interesting. I don't know what I'll have to think about that between now and then. In the interim, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns regarding my answer, or you have some thoughts as to how you can make how a GM can make the stakes important in the game, please don't hesitate to leave a comment in the comment section below in the video, to shoot me a tweet at Dungeon Musings, or to shoot me an email at dungeonmusings@gmail.com. You also may note that there are some links in the description of this video. Those are to the Heroes Save Villages campaign our charity fundraising campaign that we're running on the channel. We have linked up with an organization called SOS Children's Villages International, a really terrific charity that both advocates and provides services for high needs kids, both in North America and elsewhere in the world. If you want to learn more about SOS Children's Villages International, you can click through on the one link, and any amount of a donation goes directly to the organization, and there are some neat rewards there as well, which will be expanding in the near future as well, too, as soon as I get a chance to get back to the campaign. And if you want to learn the reason for the campaign, please don't hesitate to click through to the video that's listed there as well, where I go through in depth my reasons for starting the campaign and my connection with SOS Children's Villages International. This is, again, completely voluntary. Please don't feel obligated to participate in that. But if you do enjoy the videos on the channel and you do want to throw some money, I would ask that you maybe consider throwing it their way, because it's a charity that does a lot of really good work. Anyway, thanks so much for listening, folks, and I will see you again tomorrow without a chapeau for how can we get more people playing. Thanks very much. Have a great night.